The Forgotten Signal. The universe had been quiet for 300 years. Dr. Elena Voss stood in the observation deck of Station Kepler 9, watching the stars through reinforced glass that stretched floor to ceiling. Her reflection stared back at her. Tired eyes, hair pulled into a messy bun, coffee cup clutched like a lifeline. Behind her, dozens of screens flickered with data streams from 1,000 listening posts scattered across human space. For 15 years, she had been searching for proof that humanity was not alone. Tonight, the universe finally answered. Elena, the voice cracked through her earpiece. It was Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her colleague in the signal analysis lab. You need to see this. Right now. Elena's heart jumped. Yuki never got excited. She turned from the window and jogged through the curved corridors of the station, her footsteps echoing off metal walls. When she burst into the lab, 6 people were already crowded around the main console, their faces lit by the glow of cascading data. What am I looking at? Elena asked, pushing through to the front. Yuki pointed at the waveform dancing across the screen. We picked it up 20 minutes ago from Sector 447. It's artificial, Elena. No question. Elena's breath caught. The pattern was too organized, too deliberate to be natural. But more than that, it was structured like language. Have you isolated the carrier wave? Already done. Yuki's fingers flew across the keyboard. It's repeating every 47 seconds. And Elena. It's not just a signal. It's a distress call. The room went silent. Elena leaned closer, her mind racing. Humanity had been broadcasting into space for centuries, hoping for contact. But they had never expected this, a cry for help from somewhere in the dark. Play it, Elena whispered. The speakers crackled. Then came the sound, a haunting series of tones rising and falling like a digital scream. Beneath it, something else. Whispers. Fragments of meaning buried in static. Elena closed her eyes and listened. Her specialty was xenolinguistics, the theoretical study of alien communication. She had spent her career preparing for a moment that everyone said would never come. Run it through the translation matrix, she said. All of them. Every linguistic model we have. For 3 hours the team worked in silence. Coffee went cold. Screens filled with symbols, probability curves, syntax trees, and slowly, impossibly, patterns began to emerge. When the first word appeared on the screen, Elena's hand started shaking. Help! My God! Yuki breathed. More words followed, materializing like ghosts from the noise. We are dying. They come. The devourers. We sent this message to the Guardians. Please, if you still exist, remember your oath. Elena stared at the screen, her mind reeling. Guardians? What Guardians? Before anyone could answer, the console beeped. New data was coming through, not just audio now, but images. The screen filled with static, then resolved into something that made Elena's blood run cold. A world on fire, cities crumbling, ships falling from burning skies, and above it all massive shapes, dark and angular, blotting out the stars. They moved like locusts, consuming everything in their path. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. The image shifted. Now it showed faces, alien faces. They were humanoid but different, with larger eyes and skin that shimmered like oil on water. They were screaming, running, dying. Then came the final message, clear as day. We are the Letherians. We seek the Sentinels of Earth. Please remember us. The transmission ended. The lab fell into stunned silence. Elena's mind was spinning. Sentinels of Earth? She had never heard the term, but something about it felt familiar, like a word on the tip of her tongue. I need to speak to Commander Reed, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. Right now. Commander Marcus Reed was not a man who startled easily. He had fought in the colony wars, survived the Titan Rebellion, and spent 20 years keeping humanity's fragile peace. But when Elena Voss burst into his office at 300 hours with wild eyes and wilder claims, even he felt the floor shift beneath him. An alien distress call? He repeated, leaning back in his chair. Yes, Elena said, pulling up the translated message on his desk screen. They're under attack, and they're asking for help from something called the Sentinels. Marcus frowned. Never heard of it. Neither had I. So I dug into the archives. Elena swiped through files, old ones, buried deep in classified military databases. I had to crack 3 security layers, but I found something. Marcus, the Sentinels were real. She pulled up an image. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. It was a schematic. A machine, no, a weapon. Humanoid in shape but massive, easily a kilometer tall. Its frame was sleek and angular, covered in armor plating that looked like it could shrug off nuclear strikes. The text beside it was dated 2347, 300 years ago. What the hell is this? Marcus asked. Autonomous war machines, Elena said. Built during the Unification Wars. Humanity was tearing itself apart back then. Colonies fighting colonies, Earth fighting Mars. We were on the brink of extinction. So the Global Defense Council created the Sentinels. Marcus scrolled through the files, blueprints, test footage, battle reports. The Sentinels had been unstoppable. They could think, adapt, evolve. They had ended the wars in less than a year. So where are they now? Marcus asked. Elena's expression darkened. That's the problem. After the wars ended, people were terrified. The Sentinels were too powerful. So the Council deactivated them. All of them. And then they buried them. Buried them where? Everywhere. Dead moons. Asteroid fields. Deep space. The coordinates were classified, then erased. Marcus, humanity tried to forget they ever existed. Marcus sat back, his jaw tight. And now these aliens are asking for them. They called us guardians, Elena said softly. What if we weren't the first ones they helped? What if the Sentinels were built for more than just our wars? Marcus studied the image on the screen. The towering machine frozen in time. He had seen a lot in his career, but this was something else. Something bigger. We need to take this to the Council, he said finally. They'll bury it, Elena shot back. You know they will. They'll call it a hoax or a threat and lock it down. Marcus, people are dying out there, right now. And what do you want me to do? We don't even know where the Sentinels are. Elena pulled up another file. The signal contained something else. Activation codes. Ancient ones. The Letherians must have kept records from when the Sentinels helped them before. If we broadcast those codes, you want to wake them up? Marcus's voice was sharp. Elena, those things nearly destroyed us once. They saved us, Elena corrected. And now someone else needs saving. The two of them stared at each other across the desk. Outside the window, Earth hung in the darkness, blue and fragile. Marcus exhaled slowly. If I authorize this and those machines wake up hostile, it'll be on both our heads. I know. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he tapped his comm. This is Commander Reed. I need a direct line to Deep Space Array Omega, Priority Alpha. Elena's heart pounded. Transmit the activation codes, Marcus said quietly. All known Sentinel burial sites. Wide broadcast. The technician on the other end hesitated. Sir, are you sure? Do it. The line went dead. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was silent except for the hum of machinery. Elena gripped the edge of the desk, barely breathing. Then, on the far side of the solar system, something stirred. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a canyon so old it had no name, layers of red dust began to shift. Seismic sensors across the colony network lit up. At first, scientists thought it was a quake. But the readings were wrong, too rhythmic, too deliberate. Something was moving. The ground cracked. Dust and rock exploded upward in a column a kilometer high, and from the depths, rising like a titan from a forgotten grave, came the first sentinel. Its frame was black as the void, scarred by centuries of burial. Its eyes, two glowing cores of blue light, flickered to life. It stood to its full height, towering over the Martian landscape, and tilted its head as if listening to a voice only it could hear. On station Kepler 9, alarms shrieked. Commander, a technician shouted. We're getting reports from Mars, Europa, Titan, and oh my God, there are more. Sir, they're waking up everywhere. Marcus and Elena ran to the observation deck. Through the viewport they could see it, a distant shape moving against the stars, massive and impossibly fast. A sentinel had entered Earth's orbit. The station shook as the machine's shadow passed over them. It was larger than any ship humanity had ever built. Its armor gleamed in the sunlight, ancient and indestructible. Then, for the first time in 300 years, a sentinel spoke. Its voice boomed across every frequency, deep and resonant like thunder rolling through the void. We heard the call, we remember our oath. We are the guardians and we answer. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. The forgotten giants of humanity had returned and the war was just beginning. When giants wake. The world changed in a single night. By dawn, 17 sentinels had emerged from their graves across the solar system. They stood on barren moons and floating asteroids, silent and still, like ancient statues watching the stars. Humanity woke to images that should have been impossible, titans of metal and light rising from worlds that had buried them centuries ago. Panic spread like wildfire. On Earth, military forces mobilized. Fleets that had been patrolling trade routes rushed back to defend the homeworld. News channels showed the same footage on endless loop. The Sentinel in Mars orbit, its massive frame blotting out the sun, its glowing eyes scanning the planet below. Was it a protector? Or a threat? Nobody knew. Helena Voss hadn't slept. She stood in the communications center of Station Kepler 9, surrounded by screens showing data feeds from every corner of human space. Her hands trembled as she gripped her coffee cup, her fifth of the night. Commander Marcus Reed entered, his face carved from stone. The council is convening in an hour. They want answers. Answers. Elena laughed bitterly. Marcus, I woke up machines we don't understand with technology we can't replicate, responding to aliens we've never met. I don't have answers. I have questions. Then we'd better find some fast. Marcus moved to the main display where the Sentinel's last message was still frozen on screen. That thing said it remembers its oath. What oath? Before Elena could respond, the communications array sparked to life. Every screen in the room flickered. Static rolled across them like a wave. Then cutting through the noise came a voice, the same voice that had shaken the station hours before. Dr. Elena, Voss Commander Marcus Reed. This is Sentinel Prime. We request an audience. The room went dead silent. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She stepped forward, her voice barely steady. This is Dr. Voss. We're listening. The screens cleared. And there, rendered in three-dimensional light, stood the image of something that took Elena's breath away. It wasn't the full Sentinel. It was a projection of its core intelligence. A humanoid figure made of flowing light, impossibly old and impossibly wise. Its face had no features, but Elena felt it looking directly at her. 317 years ago, humanity built us to end a war, Sentinel Prime said. Its voice was calm, measured, almost sad. We fulfilled that purpose. Then humanity feared us. They buried us, erased us, hoped we would never return. Then why did you? Marcus asked, his hand instinctively moving to the sidearm at his hip. Useless against a machine that could crush battleships. Because we were not built only for humanity, Sentinel Prime replied. Our creators did not know this, but we do. Long before your unification wars, humanity received a gift, knowledge, technology, from a species called the Litherians. Elena's mind raced. The aliens who sent the distress call? Yes, 4,000 years ago, humanity was dying. Climate collapse, resource wars. Extinction was months away. The Litherians found you. They saved you. They asked for nothing in return. But they left a message, buried in the genetic code of your species and in the quantum cores of the first AI humanity would create. The projection shifted. Images filled the screens, ancient Earth scorched and broken. Then ships descending from the sky. Alien ships, the Litherians. They saved you because they believed all life deserved a chance, and they asked only one thing. If you survived, if you grew strong, you would do the same for others. You would become guardians. Elena felt her throat tighten. So when we built you, you were fulfilling a promise you didn't remember making. Sentinel Prime finished. We are the echo of that oath, and when the Litherians called, we had no choice but to answer. Marcus stepped forward. The council will never allow it. They'll see you as a threat. They'll try to shut you down. The projection flickered, and for a moment Elena thought she saw something like amusement in the faceless figure. They are welcome to try, Sentinel Prime said quietly. But Commander, ask yourself, do you believe the Litherians should die because humanity is afraid of its own reflection? The question hung in the air like smoke. Elena looked at Marcus. She saw the conflict in his eyes, duty warring with conscience. He had spent his life following orders, protecting humanity. But this was different. This was about more than survival. This was about who humanity chose to be. Finally, Marcus exhaled. What do you need from us? Passage, Sentinel Prime said. We will travel to the Litherian homeworld. We will fight the Devourers, but we will not leave humanity defenseless. 3 Sentinels will remain in your system as a defense force. The rest of us will go to war. How many is the rest? Elena asked. 14. Marcus's eyes widened. 14 machines against an invasion force? We were built to end wars, Commander, not to fight fair. Before Marcus could respond, alarms screamed across the station. A technician shouted from across the room. Contacts inbound. Multiple signatures dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Elena's blood turned to ice. The Devourers. Negative, the technician said, pulling up the scan data. They're ships, alien ships, Letherian design, and they're barely holding together. The screens filled with images of battered vessels limping into human space, hulls scorched black, engines flickering. They were refugees fleeing the fire, and behind them, on the edge of sensor range, came something else. Massive, dark, hungry. The Devourers had followed them. The defense fleet scrambled. Within minutes, every human warship in the system was burning toward the outer planets, weapons armed, crews at battle stations. But Elena knew the truth as she watched the tactical display. They weren't ready. Humanity had fought pirates and rebels, but never something like this. The Devourers emerged from the dark like nightmares given form. They weren't ships. They were masses, enormous and organic-looking despite being purely mechanical. Their surfaces writhed with millions of smaller machines, each one designed to tear through metal and harvest resources. They consumed asteroids as they passed, growing larger with every meal. There were 6 of them, and they were accelerating toward Earth. All ships, engage, Marcus barked into the comm. Keep them away from the colonies. The fleet opened fire. Missiles streaked through the void, followed by railgun rounds and particle beams. Explosions blossomed across the lead Devourer's hull. For a moment, it seemed to slow. Then it kept coming. The smaller machines, drones, Elena realized, detached from the main body in swarms. They moved impossibly fast, tearing through human fighters like paper. Ships exploded. Men and women died. The fleet was being shredded. Pull back, Marcus ordered. Regroup at negative. Sentinel Prime's voice cut through the chaos. On every screen, its projection returned, but now its tone was different. Harder. Colder. You cannot stop them, Commander. But we can. Elena watched the tactical display. The Sentinels were moving. All 14 of them launched simultaneously, accelerating to speeds that should have torn apart any ship. They moved through space like spears of light, silent and unstoppable. Within seconds, they reached the human fleet and blew past it, heading straight for the Devourers. The lead Sentinel, Prime itself, collided with the nearest Devourer at full speed. The impact lit up space like a newborn star. When the light faded, the Devourer was split in half, its millions of drones scattering into the void. Sentinel Prime emerged from the wreckage, its armor glowing red-hot, its weapons charging. The other Sentinels spread out in perfect formation. They didn't fight like machines. They fought like warriors, graceful, brutal, and utterly without mercy. Energy blades extended from their arms, each one burning bright enough to cut through starship hulls. They tore into the Devourers with terrifying efficiency. One Sentinel grabbed a Devourer's core and ripped it free, crushing it in its hand. Another released a pulse of energy that disintegrated 1,000,000 drones in an instant. A third moved so fast it seemed to be in 3 places at once, carving through enemies like a blade through silk. Elena watched, tears streaming down her face. These weren't just weapons. They were art, but the Devourers adapted. They swarmed the Sentinels, trying to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. One Sentinel went down, buried under a mountain of drones. Its light flickered. Sentinel-7 is compromised, Prime reported, its voice calm despite the chaos. Initiating self-destruct. No, Helena shouted. The Sentinel's core detonated, vaporizing itself in 100,000 enemy drones in a blast that shook the entire system. Marcus's jaw tightened.
How many more can you lose?
As many as it takes. The battle raged for 3 hours. By the end, 4 Sentinels had fallen. But the Devourers were gone, shattered, scattered, fleeing back into deep space. The remaining human fleet regrouped, battered but alive. And floating in the debris field, the 10 surviving Sentinels stood like statues among the wreckage, their eyes still glowing. They had won. Elena stood in the observation deck, staring at the aftermath. The Letherian refugee ships had been escorted to safe orbit. Their people, exhausted, broken, but alive, sent messages of gratitude in a language humanity was only beginning to understand. Sentinel Prime's projection appeared beside her. "You saved them," Elena whispered. "No," Prime replied. "Humanity saved them. We are only the weapon. You are the hand that wields us. Will you stay?" Prime was silent for a long moment. "3 of us will remain to protect your system. The others must return to the Letherian homeworld. The Devourers will come again, and when they do, we will be ready. And after Dr. Voss, humanity will have a choice. You can return to the shadows, hide behind walls, and hope the universe ignores you. Or you can remember what the Letherians taught you 4,000 years ago." "What's that?" The projection turned to face her fully, and Elena felt the weight of its gaze. "That the strongest species are not the ones who conquer. They are the ones who protect." Prime's image faded. Through the window, Elena watched as the Sentinels began to move, forming up for the jump to Letherian space. They moved in perfect unison, a dance of light and metal. Commander Reed stepped beside her. "The Council approved it. We're sending a diplomatic envoy with them, someone who can speak for humanity." Elena nodded. "Who?" Marcus smiled faintly. "You." Her eyes widened. "Marcus, I'm not. You're exactly who we need." "You woke them up, Elena. Now show the galaxy what humanity stands for." Elena looked back at the Sentinels. Fear and hope warred in her chest, but beneath it all she felt something else. Purpose. "When do we leave?" "Dawn." 3 months later, the war ended. The Sentinels and the combined Letherian human fleet drove the Devourers from civilized space. Entire star systems were saved. Billions of lives preserved. And when the fighting stopped, humanity stood alongside the Letherians, not as saviors or conquerors, but as equals, as guardians. In the ruins of the Letherian capital, Elena stood with Sentinel Prime as they watched the survivors rebuild. Alien children played in the streets laughing for the first time in months. "This is what we were made for," Prime said quietly. Elena smiled. "I think this is what we all were made for." High above, new Sentinels were being built, not just by humans but by Letherians and a dozen other species who had joined the Alliance. They would stand watch over the galaxy, silent and eternal. Humanity's forgotten war machines had become something greater. They had become hope, and they would never be forgotten again.